also, I feel like that's kind of going to help LSU's case in terms of adding momentum and making this transfer portal class and the ranking that they have being the best class, being number one, actually turn it into something. I mean, you pair that with the return in production, and I feel like that's kind of how you avoid turning into teams like Ole Miss, Colorado, A&M. And I'm not throwing no slander. I'm just saying there are teams that through the last 2 years have been high-ranked portal classes, and it hasn't exactly planned out. I don't know if there's a science to it, but I'm just wondering what your thought process is on where LSU is at in that. Like, if fans see, okay, we're the number one portal class, is that something to even get excited about, or is that something that you're going to kind of have to see how it pans out because you're shooting darts at this point?
I mean, as we know, it's all a project. All right. On paper, I think LSU has one of the best rosters in the SEC going into next year. As of today, I think they got one of the best rosters. But that doesn't mean anything until you actually see it all get put together. This is a lot of different pieces they added to the from the portal. All right, guys coming from um, different cultures and different backgrounds, so you don't know how it's going to all play out. I mean, 14 transfers, that's a lot. That's a lot. It's not like you add 3 or 4. All right. And then you got to think about this. Some of these guys are coming off an injury, man. Like, you think about somebody like Destin Hill, who I think the world of, who I covered coming out of high school at Edna Carr, under All-American, was one of the best prospects I ever covered at the receiver position in Louisiana. And I think he is a super talent, but he's coming off of a torn ACL, right? And for what I'm hearing that, he could possibly not participate in the spring because they want to make sure he's all the way healthy going into the season. So I think, that's a question mark. You think about somebody like Nick Anderson, who sat out majority of the year at Oklahoma with the groin, right? And the groin injury is something that's a lingering thing. He's not participating in the spring. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, that's a lot of unknown from those two guys. All right, Barry Brown is probably the only one that's coming in from the receiver position that's going to probably participate in the spring. All right, and so when I think about that, I look at it and say to myself, is that receiver room going to be as talented as we think? If all those guys are healthy, hell yeah, they'll be one of the best in the country. But if those guys are not 100% or they're not themselves like we known them to be in the past before the injury, things could be a little different with that offense. It cannot be as explosive as we thought. And so I just think that when you say you like a team roster on paper, you gonna like it. But you got to see how it's going to all shake out. And you got to see how they're going to get acclimated to Brian Kelly's culture. I'm going to tell you something right now, man. Brian Kelly going to be on 1,000 in the spring and in the fall camp because he knows the pressure is on.
Mm-hmm.
You going into year 4, man, nobody don't care about going to the LilCaesars.com bowl. Nobody care about going to the Citrus Bowl. The only thing people care about right now in Baton Rouge is we in a 12-team playoff. And if you're not in that 12-team playoff, man, you can start hearing the rumors about, his buyout and, moving on. And I'm just telling you what's being said, in the Baton Rouge area, right? And, I know they spent a lot of money NIL wise on his portal. Some of these guys they got in there, so they got to see it all come to fruition on the field. So how guys are going to take the hard coaching and when the pressure is on from Brian Kelly and that staff that they got to get it done this year. We don't know. We don't know. I say it all the time, man. Sometimes when these guys get in the portal, they're in the portal for a reason. Some of them in there for good reasons. Some of them in there because they couldn't handle adversity what it was before. So you got to kind of see how it's going to all play out. I would hope that they did their homework on a lot of these guys and made sure they good character kids. But we'll see. We'll see. But I said it and I'm going to say it again. On paper, though, I think they got one of the best rosters in the SEC.
For sure. And yeah, you're definitely going to have to see it pan out. And that's one of the first things that popped into my head when you see the number one class, you see all the big signings, you see all the hype start to build. It's kind of like, all right, well, I mean, we've seen this play out. I mean, I gave some bad examples, but there's also some good examples. You got, Oregon, Texas, they've been able to utilize that portal well. So it's definitely about how you calculate it and about what you pair it with. But that's a good point talking about Kelly and that sea heating up, that whole building is gonna heat up there. It's gonna get the climate control gonna be necessary at Baton Rouge this season. Because what about a Verdant Verdict G Sports Bowl though? I'd be hyped for that. Let's get a bowl game like that, man. Then I ain't complaining.
Yeah, yeah. I like
I
the
don't want
ring of
to
that. I
take.
like the ring of that.
It's probably the only thing I'll take here. I do want to ask you though. You think there's any more, visits coming up here soon, or is LSU going to pretty much just be rounding it off at this number? I mean, like you said, they got a lot. We got 14 or 15 official after Destin Hill and the Thompson paperwork comes through. Um, do they hit 17, 18? Like, how many more could they even add?
I think right now, if in a perfect world they would get two safeties and probably a linebacker, a Mike linebacker. I think if you do that, I think the roster should be pretty much set in my mind. And I know they got the tight end from Texas A&M coming. If you add him, I think that just bring more depth to that room. And but when you look around on that roster, man, I think they did a good job of hitting their needs. We got you some old linemen in the portal. All right, you got somebody like Solomon Thomas, who was an All American, and I think is somebody that could possibly get some playing time next year on the O line. Right, I think he's that good and he has that mindset. Um, I just think they're in a good place. They're in a good place. They're in a good place, and I'm excited to see it all gel together. And they're gonna have a short amount of time to get it to gel together because once you get to spring football, it might seem like a long time, but that's a short period of time from April to August to get it all to gel together, to get that chemistry, to get them to understand the culture, to understand how to move at practice and in that building in the city of Baton Rouge and gelling with their teammates, right? That's a short amount of time to be able to go out there and compete week one on the road at Clemson. So
ACC champs.
yeah, yeah. So this is not going to be an easy task, but uh, I believe in Brian Kelly, man. I believe in his process, and I think that you know the sense of urgency that he's going to have in this spring and in the summer and at fall camp, I think it's going to be infectious over the team, and I think I can see them performing well if these guys that we talking about overcoming some of them injuries and they buy into his culture.